shining stars. A very warm welcome to your class 8th English class. And here I am, your learning buddy Aprajita, with a new chapter for you. That is chapter number 4. And the name of the chapter is The Gift of the Megi. Let's warm up first. What is the most precious gift that you have received in the past? Tell the class about it. आपने कुछ पास में आपको कोई बहुत प्रेशियस गिफ्ट किसी ने दिया है, आपके लिए वो बहुत प्रेशियस है, उसके बारे में अपने क्लासमेट से डिस्कस कीजिए. Imagine it is your parents' 25th marriage anniversary, grandparents' 50th marriage anniversary. You have saved some pocket money in a piggy bank. What would you like to gift them? क्या गिफ्ट देना चाहेंगे उनको? Tell your class about it. And think of your things that you can associate with Christmas. Christmas के साथ कौन-कौन सी चीजें आप associate करते हैं? Write them out here. Now we start the chapter. $1.87. That was all. And 60 cents of it was in pennies. Count किया गया तो कितना amount निकला? $1.87. और जो 60 cents थे वो pennies में. Pennies saved 1 and 2 at a time by bulldozing the grocer and the vegetable man and the butcher until one's cheeks burned with the silent imputation of parsimony that such close dealing implied. और वो जो pennies इकट्ठा किए गए थे, collection of pennies था, वो कैसे था? Butchers, then vegetable sellers और grocer इन सब के साथ arguments करके the deal को थोड़ा down करके वो pennies save की गई थी. 3 times Della counted it. Della ने 3 times इसे count किया. $1.87. And the next day would be Christmas. There was clearly nothing that Della could do to add to this amount to translate her dream in action. अब ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं था जो डेला कर सकती थी इस अमाउंट को बढ़ाने. So she started crying, not knowing what to do. अब उसको अपना ड्रीम पूरा करना था, उसके लिए वो इस अमाउंट को कैसे बढ़ाए. Della finished her cry and attended to her cheeks with the powder rag. She stood by the window and looked out dully at a grey cat walking a grey fence in a grey backyard. और वो विंडो पे खड़े होके जब उसका रोना हो गया तो उसने अपने पाउडर रैग से अपना चीक साफ किए एंड वो खिड़की से बाहर देखी. Tomorrow would be Christmas Day and she had only how much? $1.87 with which to buy Jim a present. She had been saving every penny she could for months. बहुत महीनों से वो एक penny save कर रही थी. With this result, $20 a week doesn't go far. Expenses had been greater than she had calculated. They always are. She had only $1.87 to buy a present for Jim. जिम के लिए प्रेजेंट खरीदने के लिए, गिफ्ट खरीदने के लिए क्रिसमस का उसके पास बस $1.87 थे. Many a happy hour she had spent planning for something nice for him. वो बहुत टाइम से प्लान कर रही थी कुछ अच्छा देने. Something fine and rare and sterling. Something little bit near to being worthy of the honor of being owned by Jim. Suddenly, an idea struck her mind. Her eyes were shining brilliantly, but her face had lost its color within 20 seconds. Rapidly, she pulled down her hair and let it fall to its full length. उसकी hair पूरे full length में खोल. Now there were 2 possessions of the James Dillingham's Youngs, that is, Jim, in which they took a mighty pride. One was Jim's gold watch that had been his father's and his grandfather's. The other was Della's hair. उसके लंबे बाल. 2 possessions थे उसके पास, एक तो जिम की गोल्ड वॉच और एक उसके लंबे बाल. Had the Queen of Sheba lived in the flat across the air shaft, Della would have let her hair hang out the window someday to dry, just to depreciate Her Majesty's jewels and gifts. Had King Solomon been the janitor with all his treasures piled up in the basement. Jim would have pulled out his watch every time he passed, just to see him pluck at his beard from envy. So now Della's beautiful hair fell about her, rippling and shining like a cascade of brown water. It reached below her knee, इतने लंबे बाल से, and made itself almost a garment for her. And then she did it up again nervously and quickly. फिर उसने फिर से बांध लिया अपने बाल. On went her old brown jacket. On went her old brown hat, with a whirl of skirts and with the brilliant sparkle still in her eyes. She fluttered out the door and down the stairs to the street. वो बाहर निकल गई ये सब सोचते हुए. She put on her that brown jacket, brown old hat, and she went down the street. Where she stopped, the sign read, Megi, saffrony hair goods of all kinds. One flight up, Della ran and collected herself panting. Madam, large, too white, chilly, hardly looked at saffron. Will you buy my hair? Asked Della. वहां पहुंच के डेला ने बोला कि क्या आप मेरे बाल खरीदेंगे? I buy hair, said man. Take your hat off and let's have a sight at the looks of it. अब जो शॉप पे जो थी उन्होंने बोला कि yes, I buy hair, मैं हेयर खरीदती हूँ, लेकिन पहले अपना हैट हटाओ और मैं देख लूँ अपने बाल. Down rippled the brown casket. $20, said madam, lifting the mass with a practiced hand. Give it to me quick, said Della. अब मैडम बोली, जो मैडम वहां बैठी थी उन्होंने कहा कि हमारे इन बालों के बदले में मैं तुम्हें $20. डेला ने कहा जल्दी से दो मुझे. Oh, the next 2 hours was ransacking the stores for Jim's present. और 2 घंटे वो फिर जिम के लिए प्रेजेंट्स खरीदने में लगा दिए डेला ने. She found it at last. It surely had been made for Jim and no one else. After 2 hours, she found a present for Jim. There was no other like it in any of the stores. It was a platinum fob chain, simple and chaste in design, properly proclaiming its value by substance alone. A platinum fob chain. It was even worthy of the watch. As soon as she saw it, she knew that it must be Jim's. It was like him. $21 they took from her for it. और उसके लिए उसे $21 पे करना. And she hurried home with the 87 cents. और उसके पास जो 87 cents बचे थे वो लेके वो वापस अपने घर. With that chain on his watch, Jim might be properly anxious about the time in any company. When Della reached home, her intoxication gave way a little prudence and reason. She got out her curling irons and lighted the gas and went to work repairing the ravages made by generosity added to love. Within 40 minutes, her head was covered with tiny, close-lying curls that made her look wonderfully like a truant schoolboy. अब उसके बाल बिल्कुल छोटे-छोटे हो गए थे. Curly hairs, short curly hairs. She looked at her reflection in the mirror long, carefully and critically. If Jim doesn't kill me, she said to herself, before he takes a second look at me, he'll say, I look like a Coney Island chorus girl. She was afraid. उसको डर भी लग रहा था कि जिम कहीं मुझे डांटे. But what could I do? Oh, what could I do with $1.87? मैं $1.87 से क्या खरीद सकती थी जिम के लिए? तो उसको ये करना पड़ा. She had to sell her hair. At 7 o'clock, the coffee was made and the frying pan was on the back of the stove hot and ready to cook the chops. Jim was never late. Della doubled the fork chain in her hand and sat on the corner of the table near the door that he always entered. और डेला उस चेन को हाथ में लेके वहां बैठ गई जहां वो हमेशा बैठती थी, टेबल जो था कॉर्नर ऑफ द टेबल जो डोर के पास था जहां से जिम एंटर। Then she heard his steps on the stairs and she turned white for just a moment. She had a habit for saying little silent prayers about the simplest everyday things, and now she was, please God, make him think I am still pretty. अब उसको ये भी डर था कि जब जिम उसको देखेगा उसके बाल बिना बालों के बिना लंबे बालों के वो शॉर्ट हेयर्स के साथ, कहीं वो ये ना सोचे कि वो प्रिटी नहीं रही। तो शी वाज प्रेइंग टू गॉड। द डोर ओपन्ड एंड जिम स्टेप्ड इन एंड क्लोज्ड इट। He looked thin and very serious. Poor fellow, he was only 22 and to be burdened with a family. He needed a new overcoat and he was without gloves. So Jim जब अंदर आया तो he was looking very serious. Jim stopped inside the door. His eyes were fixed upon Della and there was an expression in them that she could not read. And it terrified her. जिम जब अंदर आया उसकी आंखें कहाँ फिक्स हो गई? डेला। And she was now afraid. It was not anger, nor surprise, nor disapproval, nor horror, nor any of the sentiments that she had been prepared for. He simply stared at her fixedly with the peculiar expression on his face. उसके फेस पे एक एक्सप्रेशन था जब उसने डेला को देखा। वो गुस्सा नहीं था, कोई हॉरर का नहीं था, डिसअप्रूवल का भी एक्सप्रेशन नहीं था। He was just looking at Della. Della wriggled off the table and went for him. Jim, darling, she cried, don't look at me that way. I had my hair cut off and sold because I couldn't have lived through Christmas without giving you a present. अब डेला जिम के पास गई और उससे बोली कि मुझे इस तरह ऐसे मत देखो क्योंकि मैं अपने हेयर्स को कटवा के सेल ऑफ करके आई हूँ क्योंकि मैं इस क्रिसमस पे कुछ देना चाहती हूँ। It will grow out again. You won't mind, will you? ये तो दोबारा से आ जाएंगी, जो मेरे हेयर्स कट हुए हैं वो दोबारा से ग्रो कर जाएंगे। I hope you don't mind. I just had to do it. My hair grows awfully fast. Say Merry Christmas, Jim, and let's be happy. अब डेला ने जिम से बोला कि हम मेरी क्रिसमस बोलते हैं और एक दूसरे को और खुश होते हैं क्योंकि ये बाल तो फिर से आ जाएंगे। You don't know what a beautiful, nice gift I've got for you. वो कहती है कि मैं तुम्हारे लिए कितना सुंदर गिफ्ट लाई हूँ तुम्हें पता भी नहीं। You have cut off your hair, asked Jim nervously. Cut it off and sold it, said Della. Don't you like me just as well anyhow? I am me without my hair, aren't I? Jim looked about the room curiously. You say your hair is gone, he said with an air almost of idiocy. You needn't look for it, said Della. It's sold. I tell you, sold and gone too. It's Christmas Eve, boy. Be good to me, for it went for you. Maybe the hairs of my head were numbered, she went on with sudden serious sweetness. But nobody could ever count my love for you. Shall I put the chops on, Jim? Now Jim was looking around at the room. तो डेला उससे बोलती है कि मेरे हेयर्स मैं बेच के आई हूँ, sold off. यहाँ मत ढूंढो मेरे हेयर्स because I have sold it off and that's just for you. Jim drew a package from his overcoat pocket and threw it upon the table. Jim ने अपने overcoat के pocket से एक पैकेट निकाला और उसको टेबल पे रख दिया. Don't make any mistake, Della, he said, about me. But if you'll unwrap that package, you may see why you had me going wild at first. Jim says कि Della कोई mistake नहीं करना about me, but जब आप इसे खोलोगे, unwrap the package. White fingers and nimble tore at the string and paper. And then an ecstatic scream of joy, and then, alas, a quick feminine change to hysterical tears and wails, necessitating the immediate employment of all the comforting powers of the lord of the flat. And when she opened the package, these all expressions were there, for there lay the combs, the set of combs that Della had worshipped long in Broadway winter. और वो जो पैकेज उसने खोला उसमें क्या निकला? A set of combs, जो कि डेला ने कभी विश किया था लेने के लिए अपने लंबे बालों को. Beautiful combs, pure tortoise shell with jeweled rims. They were expensive combs, she knew, and her heart had simply craved and yearned over them without the least hope of possession. And now they were hers, but the tresses that should have adored the coveted adornments were gone. Because that जो उसने विश किया था कुछ टाइम पहले, वो जो कॉम्स का सेट था वो जिम ने उसको लाके दिया, बट अब उसको ये लग रहा था कि ये कॉम का सेट मेरा है, इट इज माइन, बट द हेयर्स वर नॉट देयर टू कॉम, लेकिन उसके हेयर्स नहीं थे. But she hugged them to her bosom, and at length she was able to look up with dim eyes and a smile and say, "My hairs grow so fast, Jim." उसने उस पैकेज को अपने गले से लगा लिया और उसने कहा कि मेरे बाल तो फिर से उग जाएंगे, मेरे बाल तो फिर से ग्रो कर जाएंगे, बहुत जल्दी ग्रो कर जाएंगे. And then Della leaped up like a little signed cat and cried, "Oh, oh!" Jim had not yet seen his beautiful present. She held it out to him eagerly upon her open palm. The dull precious metal seemed to flash with a reflection of a bright and ardent spirit. "Isn't it a dandy, Jim? I hunted all over town to find it. You'll have to look at the time 100 times a day now. Give me your watch. I want to see how it looks on it." And she gave that present to Jim. Instead of obeying, Jim tumbled down on the couch and put his hands under the back of his head and smiled. "Della," said he, "let's put your Christmas present away and keep them a while. They are too nice to use just at present. I sold the watch to get the money to buy your combs." अब वो जो चेन लाई थी वो वॉच के लिए, वॉच में लगाने के लिए, वो वॉच तो जिम बेच के आया था उसके कॉम्स लाने के लिए. उसके जितने कॉम का सेट लाया था वो उसने वॉच बेच के लाया. And now suppose you put the chops on. अब उन chops को चढ़ा. The Megi, as you know, were wise men, wonderfully wise men who brought gifts to the babe in the mansion. They invented the art of giving Christmas presents. Being wise, their gifts were no doubt wise ones, possibly bearing the privilege of exchange in case of duplication. And here I have lamely related to you the uneventful chronicle of two foolish children in a flat who most unwisely sacrificed for each other the greatest treasures of their house. इन दोनों ने कैसा फुलिश एक्शन किया था. उसने अपने हेयर सोल्ड कर दिए थे, हेयर बेच दिए थे जिम के लिए गिफ्ट लाने के लिए, और जिम ने अपनी वॉच बेच दी डेला के लिए गिफ्ट लाने. But in a last word to the wise of these days, let it be said that of all who give gifts, these two were the wisest. Of all who give and receive gifts, such as they are wisest. Everywhere they are wisest. They are the man. So children, this was a story about the Christmas gift, the exchange of Christmas gifts. Now the comprehension. Darken the correct option in OMR sheet. Della had saved money for Jim's gift by what? Avoiding buying things from the grocer, the vegetable man, and the butcher, haggling with the grocer, the vegetable man, and the butcher, availing heavy discounts given by the grocer, the vegetable man, and the butcher, walking to work instead of taking the public transport, haggling with the grocer, the vegetable man, and the butcher. Della had exceptionally beautiful hair that was like Queen of Sheba's hair. She disliked because it was hard to maintain, was more valuable than the jewels and gifts of Queen of Sheba. Jim envied and so told her to cut it off. It was like Queen of Sheba's hair. Jim's gold watch would have made even King Solomon envy him, elicited praise from King Solomon. Being kept in King Solomon's collection of valuables elicited no response from King Solomon, made even King Solomon envy him. Okay, now let's move forward. Fill in the blanks. Some words are given in the box. Babe, 52 years, 87 cents, O. Henry. The gift of the Megi is written by O. Henry. It's written by O. Henry. After buying a gift for Jim, the amount left with Della was 87 cents. Okay? Jim was dash years old. Jim was 52 years old. Jim was 52 years old. The Megi brought gifts for the dash in the manger, for the babe in the manger. B-A-B. Say if the given statements are true T or false F. Della cried on Christmas Eve as she had insufficient amount to buy a gift. Yes, this is true. The amount that Della had saved to buy Jim a gift was $1.87. Yes, this is also true. Right, D. Della reacted happily when she heard Jim's steps on the stairs. Yes, she reacted happily. True. The Gift of the Megi is a famous short story written by Ruskin Bond. No, this is false. It's written by O. Henry. What's next? Answer the following questions. What are the two possessions in which Jim and Della took great pride? Describe them. The two possessions were, one was the gold watch of Jim and the other was the long hairs of Della. And these two were the pride they had. Why was Della worried and nervous before Jim's return from office? When Della went out and sold out her hairs to buy the gift for Jim, after returning back, she had a fear that when Jim will come back and see her short hairs, maybe he doesn't like Della in that way. Jim stopped inside the door. Describe Jim's reaction on seeing Della. When Jim came inside the door, he just kept on staring Della. He had many expressions, but the expressions were not of anger or anything, but he just kept on staring Della. Describe Della's reaction on receiving her Christmas gift. When Jim gave Della her Christmas gift, and that was a set of poems which she had once asked for, she was very happy. She was so happy that she knew that she didn't have the hair, that long hair for the comb to be used, but she was very happy on receiving that. It was hers now. Now the last one is, who were the Megi? Do you agree with the title of the story, The Gift of the Megi? Give reasons. Megi were the wonderfully wisest men who brought the gifts in the manger for the babe. And yes, this title of the story, The Gift of the Megi, is appropriate as the exchange of the gifts were started by these people only, these wise people only, and we had seen in the story that how Jim and Della, they had exchanged their gifts. The duplication was also there. The duplication of the gifts were also being handled by these wise people, and these were Jim and Della were the wisest person who took care of each other, and they exchanged the Christmas gifts so beautifully. Now the grammar, children. Read the following sentences from the story. I had a tiny apartment in the Latin Quarter overlooking a cemetery, and I was earning barely enough money to keep body and soul together. Next is, it was long since I had last seen her, and if someone had not mentioned her name, I hardly think I would have recognized her. Hardly, barely, scarcely are adverbs that mean almost, just, only just, not quite. The words quite, comfortably and clearly are the antonyms of hardly, barely, scarcely. Okay, ये antonyms हैं in words के, means opposites. Scarcely is more formal than the other two. The most common among the three is hardly. I could hardly, barely or scarcely see that in the dark. I could hardly, the phrases hardly, ever, scarcely ever can be used to indicate time frequency. I hardly ever go to watch the movie in a cinema. Hardly ज़्यादा use होता है. Seldom and rarely say how infrequently or uncommonly something happens. Seldom is more formal than rarely. I seldom go to watch movies. वरना मैं कभी कभी जाऊँ. The star is seldom or rarely visible to the naked eyes. The adverbs always, frequently, often and usually are the antonyms of seldom and rarely. All these adverbs are usually placed immediately before the main verb. Main verb से पहले use होता है. I rarely watch this show. Hardly, barely, scarcely, rarely and seldom are negative words and should not be used with not. ये नेगेटिव वर्ड्स हैं अपने आप में, इसलिए नॉट के साथ इन्हें नहीं यूज किया. I can't hardly finish it. He doesn't rarely visit us. Okay, take the correct option to complete the following sentences. The city has rarely or hardly changed in the past 10 years. The city has hardly changed in the past 10 years. I could scarcely or seldom hear him in the stadium. I could seldom hear him in the stadium. He barely or hardly ever visits his parents in the village. He hardly ever visits his parents. We hardly or seldom go for picnics. We seldom go for picnics. So children, in this way, complete the rest of the sentences. In formal written language, the words hardly, barely, scarcely, rarely and seldom can be placed at the beginning of the sentence. Formal जब हम कोई चीज लिखते हैं तो हमें ये hardly, barely, scarcely beginning of the sentence में use करना है. Rarely does a play make you feel so moved and entertained at the same time. Hardly had they started eating when the dog began to bark. Fill in the blanks with seldom, rarely, hardly, barely, scarcely to make sensible sentences. अब sentence के starting में use करना है इनको. Let's fill it. Dash have I seen her looking so anxious. Rarely have I seen her looking so anxious. Rarely. Dash had I arrived here when Anita asked me to return home. Hardly had I arrived here. Hardly. Okay. Dash had they started the match when it began to rain. Hardly had they started their match. Hardly. Again. Dash did he help anyone in the neighborhood. Seldom did he help anyone in the neighborhood. Seldom. So children, complete the rest of the sentences. Now we come to punctuation. Colon and semicolon. Punctuations you must have read in your grammar previously, also in your previous class also. आज हम करेंगे यहाँ colon और semicolon. क्या होता है? Read the following extract from the story and note the use of colon and semicolon. अब यहाँ देखिए colon और semicolon का use हुआ है कहाँ कैसे, that you have to take care. I was past hearing now, so I gave the following order. Now this is ये जो है ये क्या है? This is colon. Hot coffee for myself and an ice cream and cold coffee for her. I answered, thanking her, and presently I received from her another letter saying she was passing through Paris and would like to have a chat with me. Semicolon. This is semicolon. Okay? But her time was limited and the only free moment she had was on the following Thursday. Again semicolon. She was spending the morning at the Luxembourg and would I give her a little lunch on and first afterwards. So this is colon. Fine. 2 dots. The usual purpose of a colon is to draw the reader's attention to what follows. Reader का attention ध्यान attract करने के लिए colon use किया जाता है. Hence we use a colon before a list of items. List of items कहीं भी हम mention करते हैं, उससे पहले हम colon का use करते हैं. We visited 4 countries last year. अब वो 4 countries कौन-कौन सी हैं? पहले colon लगाएंगे and after that write down France, Germany, Japan and Australia. A colon is used to introduce some new information. The truth is this, colon, Sandesh did not appear for the interview. Use a colon before a long formal statement or a quotation. एक long formal statement या quotation से पहले भी colon use होता है. Booker T. Washington had said, colon, again in commas, success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life as by the obstacles which he has overcome. एक लंबा सा क्या है ये quotation, एक statement है, उससे पहले हमने colon का use. Use a colon between the hour and the minute when you are writing the time. जब आप time लिखते हैं तो colon का use होता है hour और minutes के बीच में. A full stop can also be used for this purpose. 6:45 p.m. Read the following lists of things. Write an appropriate introductory sentence and a colon for each of them. Now, example, a bed, a study table, a peg table, 2 chairs and a stool. अब इसका क्या बनेगा? The furniture taken on hire includes the following. एक sentence भी बना, हमने colon लगा के ये चीजें लिखी. अब यहाँ भी कुछ चीजें दी गई हैं. We have to frame a sentence and use these along with the colon. History, geography, economics and English. The teacher appointed in the school knew these subjects. Colon, history, geography, economics and English. Fine. Sparrows, crows, pigeons, owls and parrots. In the zoo we saw various birds. Colon, sparrows, crows, pigeons, owls and parrots. So this is the way you have to write down the sentences. Now rewrite the following quotations using colons. देखिए अब ये quotations कैसे use करेंगे? Colon कहाँ लगाएंगे? Horace Greeley once said, ये comma हट जाएगा. Here you'll put a colon because इसके बाद statement आ रहा है एक लंबा. So you have to put colon here. Duty and today are ours. Result and future belongs to God. Shakespeare. Better be 3 hours too soon than 1 minute too late. So after Shakespeare, the colon has to be there. Okay? Now semicolon. A semicolon is used between independently meaningful parts of a sentence. Do not use a semicolon if these parts are already joined by and, but or yet. अगर and, but और yet से ये sentences joined है तो वहाँ पे semicolon की जरूरत नहीं है. Sunita enjoyed teaching the students. Semicolon. She has never known a more enthusiastic. She has never known a more enthusiastic. Use a semicolon between independent parts of sentences joined by words and phrases like instance, therefore, however, nevertheless, hence, furthermore. Sanya dresses very strangely, semicolon. For example, today she wore a diamond tiara and a pair of white gloves to the party. So, in this way, we have to use colon and semicolon. Children, insert the semicolon wherever appropriate. जहाँ पर appropriate लगता है वहाँ semicolon. The owl is a nocturnal animal. Owl is a nocturnal animal. That is, here you will put semicolon. Okay, it begins to prowl for food at sundown and at night. Fine. Our principal is a good counselor. She is often invited. Our principal is a good counselor. Here, semicolon. She is often invited to speak to students of other schools. Martha must have enjoyed the picnic. She loves the seaside. Martha must have enjoyed the picnic. Semicolon. She loves the seaside. Dogs and cats don't get along well. Accordingly, it is unwise to keep them together in one home. Dogs and cats don't get along well accordingly. Semicolon. it is unwise to keep them together in one. So rest of the sentences, do it yourself, children. Now, speaking skills. Conduct a survey, interview students aged between 10 to 16 years to know their food preference. अब कुछ बच्चों का इंटरव्यू लीजिए जो कि 10 से 16 इयर्स के बीच के हैं और उनके फूड प्रेफरेंस क्या है, क्या उनको अच्छा लगता है खाने में, दैट यू हैव टू नो. ईच स्टूडेंट शुड इंटरव्यू 10 स्टूडेंट्स और हर एक बच्चा 10 बच्चों को इंटरव्यू करे. एंड यू मे यूज द फॉलोइंग फॉर्मेट. अब क्या फॉर्मेट यूज करना है, कैसे आपको इंटरव्यू लेना है. नेम, उस बच्चे का नाम लिखा जिसका भी आप इंटरव्यू ले रहे हैं. आई ईट जंक फूड रेगुलरली, अब उसमें यस नो पे टिक करवाइए उससे. I would prefer an aerated cold drink to a glass of milk. So these are the questions which you have to answer, which you have to ask to the students in the interview. Okay, go through these. Now make group of 10 students, compile your results together and present your findings to the other groups. अब compile कीजिए सारे results को और फिर दूसरे group से share. Now writing skills. Okay children. Now, what you have to do, read the review, following review of the story, The Luncheon. Luncheon story का एक review दिया हुआ है. Just go through this and you have to read it thoroughly. Okay? इसको read कीजिए. Write a review of a book or a story. You may take about 3 to 4 weeks to complete this project. अब जो आपने कोई बुक पढ़ी है या स्टोरी पढ़ा है उसका रिव्यू लिखना है. कैसे? चूज अ स्टोरी बुक जो आपके इंटरेस्ट का स्टोरी बुक है, स्टोरी है, वो आप लीजिए, उसको लिखिए. एंजॉय रीडिंग द स्टोरी एट लेजर एंड मेक शॉर्ट नोट्स अलोंग साइड. जब आप स्टोरी को पढ़ रहे हैं तो छोटा छोटा नोट्स बनाते जाइए. यू कुड डू सो एवरी टाइम यू हैव रेड अ सर्टेन पार्ट ऑफ स्टोरी. थोड़ा सा स्टोरी पढ़ा, उसका रिव्यू लिख दिया. अगेन यू रेड सम पार्ट, यू राइट द टेक द नोट्स ऑफ दैट. राइट अ समरी ऑफ द स्टोरी. स्टोरी को पढ़ने के बाद उसकी समरी लिखिए. Now include the following in the review. Review में क्या लिखना है? The title, author's name, theme of the story, summary of the story, your opinion of the story. और जो writing skills है, जो writer ने जो style use किया है writing का, उसके बारे में लिखना. Now the values. Unconditional love. क्या होता है ये unconditional love? Love and compassion are two things that money can't buy. Love और compassion को money से नहीं खरीदा जा सकता. The story, The Gift of Megi, teaches us that the love for one's fellow human beings is a greater quality than the love of God loves those who love their fellow humans. Okay? In today's world, everything works on a give and take principle. आजकल के टाइम में give and take principle पे चलती है पूरी दुनिया. That is giving something only in return for something else. That is what makes unconditional love and rarest and greatest of all virtues. Do you think you can love people without expecting anything in return? क्या आप सोच सकते हैं कि किसी को आप लव करें और रिटर्न में आप कुछ ना चाहें? Discuss in groups of 4 and present the main points of your discussion in the class. So children, just discuss about this unconditional love with your classmates or even with your teachers too. Fine children, so here we end our chapter and I hope you enjoyed it. So stay tuned for the new video. We'll meet soon with a new chapter. Till then, bye and stay blessed.